Mandy Bailey and Truman Muhrer-Irwin met at a roller derby after-party while attending Florida State University. Within 3 years, they married and began careers. Mandy running her own catering business, and Truman working for not-for-profit organizations. Never did this couple imagine that a job opportunity for Mandy in Buffalo, New York, would lead them to become involved in a food service operation that would perfectly blend their individual talents with their shared desire to help others.
When you came up here for a job cooking, what was the job?
It was actually a job baking, because I do that too, for a big deal unmentioned company here in Buffalo that turned out to not be the right thing for this girl.
And so how long did you stay then?
Almost a year, maybe.
Truman, what do you come to do? What is your professional path coming to Buffalo?
I had worked in disability advocacy and veterans advocacy, and then when we first came to Buffalo, we came in the middle of the year, so for the remainder of that year I actually homeschooled our son until we could get him into school here. Then eventually I ended up getting a job with a local nonprofit where I oversaw a veterans mentoring program.
So you're a veteran as well.
Yes.
Where did you serve?
I served in Iraq in 2003. We were part of the initial invasion. And then after the major combat operations were over, they sent us to Baghdad. And my unit and I, we spent the rest of our year-long tour there.
Was that the end of your service when you came back? Or did you...
I got hurt while I was over there, and I got sent back about 8 months into the deployment. And then I spent the next year in medical hold. Well, 4 months in the hospital and then 8 months on medical hold in Georgia before they medically discharged me.
You must have really been hurt. 4 months in a hospital is a long time.
Yeah, I took a pretty significant wound to my left foot. I took a piece of shrapnel straight through in one side, out the other. Severed some tendons, broke some bones.
When you come here and you start working, did you find the Buffalo community at large to be welcoming? Was it anything like you anticipated it to be?
It's great. There's a really strong,
very welcome
community here.
That Buffalo term that's going around right now, that's for real.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started up my own catering company in Tallahassee.
In Florida?
Mm-hmm. Traditional Southern food that I had grown up cooking. It had just been passed along from generation to generation.
So you start catering down in Florida, and when you come up here and decide that the large institution, baking isn't for you, what do?
Did some Girl Scout helping.
Volunteering.
No, she worked for the Girl Scouts, and you were a youth director.
That's right.
Suburban Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a son, so you have a child. At the same time you're trying to work, you're also maintaining a household with a child.
Right.
So that's a lot going on. 2 adults trying to find their place in a brand new community, along with an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Right.
During this time, Mandy was also working on the early stages of this community cafe project. It was either during or shortly after you left the first job that you were approached by the director of a local nonprofit who Mandy knew just because she networks a lot, she gets to know a lot of people, makes a lot of connections. This person wanted her to help with the business plan because of her experience in both commercial and independent kitchen management.
How do you define a community kitchen for people who don't know what that means?
A community cafe.
Sorry.
It's okay. Is a type of restaurant that is a non-profit, and it is welcoming to anybody and everybody, meaning to bring people together, and it's always set as pay as you can. If you have $10, that's great. If you have $2, that's great. If you want to help maybe clean off a counter or two or greet people at the door, that's great too. All of that is needed.
You ever heard of such a thing before?
I had never heard of it before. It apparently had already been going on a little bit all over the U.S. and is now expanded quite a bit. There's a national organization now.
To help organize them? To
facilitate
support? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of the national organization?
One World Everybody Eats.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And again, this is all not-for-profit. Yes?
Correct.
So this person who approached you,
Yeah.
did you, and you'd never really heard of it, the concept before, did you think
Right.
that it was a little crazy?
No, I thought it was a little perfect. And like, oh, of course, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Feed people. That sounds like Mandy Bailey girl has been doing forever anyway, so.
Do you create the business plan for them, or do you say no thank you? Do you jump right in with both feet?
Oh, I definitely jump right in with both feet.
What year was this?
In 2012. So Mandy did a preliminary plan for them, and the woman who brought this up, she was the director of an organization who had formerly run a soup kitchen, and they do a lot of different things, and they were looking for maybe a follow-on project, what would come next after that.
Okay.
Because the soup kitchen was closing.
Yes. And so their board decided not to go with the community cafe. But a short time later, another local organization who was going through a big renovation in their space, they wanted to turn part of their space into a community cafe. And so Mandy, already having done so much research and practical work,
Yeah.
they brought Mandy on. Said, we'd like you to help us make this happen as a consultant. So she worked on that for a while, and then this place, they were doing this massive renovation on their space, and they just had a lot of cost overruns and a lot of delays. And so they never officially scrapped it, but it got delayed until it was, it still hasn't been canceled. It's just indefinitely suspended and has been for a while. But while Mandy was working with them, they sent Mandy to Colorado to work with a couple different community cafes there.
Explain that experience in a nutshell of, you go to see what is possible, right? If you do this. What was it like?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It changed what I wanted to do with my life. Like, I thought, oh yes, this is a good idea, But this was like, oh, I was meant to be here. I was meant to do this.